The ancient warning. The massive crystal dome of Nexus Station glowed with ethereal light as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The station floated in neutral space between three major star systems, serving as the heart of galactic civilization for over 2 millennia. Inside the Great Council Chamber, beings of countless shapes and forms took their designated positions around the circular amphitheater. Elder Thyman of the Valdari stepped forward, his ancient form moving with deliberate grace. The Valdari were among the oldest sentient species in the galaxy, their translucent skin shifting through subtle color patterns that reflected their emotional states. Thyman's skin now showed deep purples and grays, colors that spoke of grave concern and urgent warning. His 3 eyes, each capable of seeing different spectrums of light, focused on the assembled delegates with an intensity that made even the most powerful beings in the galaxy shift uncomfortably. High Commander Zephyros of the Krex Empire leaned back in his hover throne, his massive frame barely contained by the reinforced seating. The Krex were natural warriors, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick armored hide and 4 powerful arms. Zephyros had conquered 17 star systems in his military career and had never encountered a challenge his fleets could not overcome. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber's translation systems. Elder Thyman, we have traveled far to attend this gathering. Our scouts report that the species in question has barely achieved primitive spaceflight. They have sent one small vessel beyond their home system, carrying basic scientific instruments. What possible threat could such beings pose to our established order? Ambassador Nira of the Salathi Collective tilted her elegant head, her large, luminous eyes reflecting curiosity rather than concern. The Salathi were renowned throughout the galaxy for their diplomatic skills and peaceful nature. They had never fought a war in their recorded history, preferring to resolve conflicts through negotiation and compromise. Her melodic voice carried easily through the chamber. Indeed, Elder, our cultural analysts have studied their transmissions extensively. While they show remarkable creativity in their art and literature, they remain deeply divided among themselves. They wage wars over resources, territory, and ideological differences. Surely such a fractured species poses no unified threat to galactic stability. Elder Thyman's skin patterns shifted to deeper, more urgent hues as he activated the chamber's holographic display system. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the assembled delegates, showing the blue-green planet in all its vibrant beauty. The display zoomed in to show human cities teeming with activity and life. Look beyond the surface, Thyman said, his voice carrying the weight of countless centuries. I have lived for over 3,000 years. I have witnessed the rise and fall of 47 different civilizations. I have seen species that seemed unstoppable crumble to dust, and I have watched others that appeared weak grow to reshape the galaxy itself. What I see in these humans terrifies me more than any force I have ever encountered. The holographic display shifted to show scenes from human history. Ancient warriors battling with bronze weapons, medieval armies clashing across vast battlefields, industrial-age conflicts involving millions of soldiers, and finally the devastating wars of the atomic age. Each scene showed the same pattern. Humans locked in seemingly impossible struggles, yet never surrendering, never accepting defeat. Observe their response to adversity, Thyman continued. When faced with natural disasters that would drive other species to abandon entire continents, humans rebuild. When diseases decimate their populations, they adapt and overcome. When their own weapons threaten to destroy their world, they find ways to control and redirect that destructive power toward exploration and discovery. Commander Vextar of the Hegemony Defense Corps stood up, his 6 arms gesticulating dismissively. The Hegemony controlled 12 star systems and maintained the largest military force in the known galaxy. Vextar's species, the Xanthari, had evolved from pack hunters and retained their predatory instincts even as they developed advanced technology. Elder, with respect, you speak of a species that has not even mastered faster-than-light travel. Our intelligence reports indicate they have nuclear weapons, yes, but of a primitive design that would barely scratch the shields of our patrol vessels. They fight with projectile weapons and chemical explosives. How could such crude technology challenge our energy weapons and quantum defenses? Thymon's three eyes fixed on Vextar with an intensity that made the warrior uncomfortable. You think like a soldier, Commander. You see weapons and tactics, numbers and firepower. But you fail to understand the most dangerous weapon these humans possess: their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Let me share with you what our deep space observers have witnessed. The holographic display changed again, showing footage from Earth's most recent conflicts. Human soldiers in desperate situations, outnumbered and outgunned, yet continuing to fight with improvised weapons and impossible determination. Rescue workers pulling survivors from collapsed buildings, working for days without rest. Scientists collaborating across national boundaries to solve problems that threaten their entire species. They have a concept they call human spirit, Thymon explained. It is not merely emotional resilience. It is something deeper, more fundamental to their nature. When presented with an impossible situation, instead of accepting defeat, they ask a different question. How can we make this possible? This mindset has allowed them to achieve things that violate what we consider natural law. Ambassador Nira leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. Can you provide a specific example, Elder? Thymon nodded, and the display showed images of human space exploration. 70 years ago, they could barely fly within their own atmosphere. The journey from ground level to low orbit required massive, dangerous rockets that failed as often as they succeeded. Any rational species would have concluded that space travel was too dangerous and expensive to pursue seriously. Instead, they treated each failure as a learning opportunity. Today, they have permanent installations on their moon, robotic explorers, throughout their solar system, and they are actively planning missions to other star systems. High Commander Zephyros laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Elder, you praise their ambition, but ambition without power is meaningless. Yes, they have reached their own moon, but we have colonized thousands of worlds. Their fastest spacecraft would take them centuries to reach even the nearest star. By what logic should we fear beings who move so slowly through space? Because they do not think about time the way we do. Thymon replied, his skin now showing flashes of bright red, indicating extreme urgency. We measure progress in decades and centuries, planning our expansion according to careful methodical schedules. Humans measure progress in generations. They begin projects knowing they will not live to see completion, but trusting their children and grandchildren to continue the work. This gives them a different relationship with impossible challenges. The Elder gestured, and new images appeared showing human technological development over just the past century. Steam engines giving way to internal combustion, then jet engines, then rocket propulsion. Communications evolving from telegraph to radio to global information networks that connected every human on their planet instantaneously. In 100 of their years, they have gone from horse-drawn transportation to landing on their moon. In 50 years, they went from their first electronic computers, which filled entire rooms, to handheld devices more powerful than our best. Tactical computers were a century ago. This is not normal technological development. This is acceleration beyond anything we have recorded in galactic history. Dr. Quill of the Academic Consortium, a floating gaseous being who existed primarily as organized energy patterns, spoke through harmonic resonance generators. Elder Thymon, while their development rate is admittedly impressive, surely the laws of physics place limits on how far any species can advance. There are fundamental barriers that cannot be overcome through determination alone. Thymon's expression grew even more grave. That is exactly the kind of thinking that will make them so dangerous to us. We see barriers. They see problems to solve. Our scientists spend decades proving why certain things are impossible. Their scientists spend years figuring out how to do impossible things anyway. The holographic display showed human achievements that had surprised galactic observers, their development of quantum communication devices decades ahead of predicted timelines, their creation of fusion power sources using methods that theoretical models suggested would not work, their recent breakthroughs in biological enhancement that bordered on what galactic science considered impossible. But the most dangerous thing about humans is not their technology, Thymon continued. It is their social adaptation. Watch how they respond to external threats. New images appeared showing humanity's response to global challenges. Climate change prompting unprecedented international cooperation. Pandemic diseases leading to the rapid development and global distribution of vaccines. Natural disasters, resulting in immediate coordinated relief efforts involving multiple nations. When faced with threats to their species, humans temporarily set aside their differences and work together with an efficiency that surpasses our most advanced collective consciousness species. They maintain their individual identities while achieving unity of purpose. This should be impossible according to our sociological models, yet they do it instinctively. Commander Zephyros was no longer laughing. Elder, are you suggesting we should fear a species because they cooperate well during emergencies? I am suggesting we should fear a species that treats galactic expansion as an emergency, Thyman replied. Their population is approaching critical mass for their homeworld. Their resource consumption is reaching unsustainable levels. Their most intelligent leaders are already advocating for aggressive space colonization as a survival necessity. When humans decide their survival depends on something, they achieve it regardless of the obstacles. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Ambassador Nira was the first to speak. Elder, what exactly are you proposing? We have already made contact with their government representatives. Diplomatic protocols have been established. Are you suggesting we should terminate these relationships? Thyman's skin patterns shifted to show deep blues and greens, colors associated with profound sadness among the Valdari. I am suggesting that if we continue on our current path, we will discover too late what it means to be in conflict with a species that has never learned to accept defeat. We are planning to guide their development, to gradually introduce them to galactic society under our terms, according to our timeline. We believe we can control the pace of their advancement and ensure they remain junior partners in galactic civilization. And you believe this approach is flawed? Dr. Quill asked. I believe this approach is catastrophically dangerous, Thyman replied. Humans do not accept junior partnerships when they believe they are capable of equality. They do not follow development timelines imposed by others when they see ways to accelerate progress. Most importantly, they do not forgive attempts to manipulate or control them, even when those attempts are presented as being for their own good. High Commander Zephyros stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Elder, even if everything you say is true, we are speaking of one world against thousands, one species against an established galactic community that has maintained peace and order for over 2 millennia. Surely our combined resources and experience provide adequate safeguards against any single species, however determined they might be. Elder Thyman looked at each delegate in turn, his ancient eyes reflecting knowledge that none of them could fully comprehend. Commander, I have seen what happens when an unstoppable force meets what believes itself to be an immovable object. The object discovers it was never truly immovable. It simply had never encountered sufficient force to reveal its limitations. What would you have us do? Ambassador Nira asked. Abandon first contact entirely? Pretend we never discovered their existence? I would have us approach them as equals, Thyman said. Not as primitives to be guided, not as potential subjects to be managed, but as a species with the potential to reshape galactic civilization. I would have us offer genuine partnership, rather than conditional membership. I would have us prepare for the reality that they will become a major galactic power, whether we assist them or not, and decide whether we want that to happen with our cooperation or despite our opposition. The delegates exchanged glances, their various forms of communication, creating a low hum of discussion throughout the chamber. Finally, High Commander Zephyros spoke for the majority. Elder Thyman, your concerns are noted and will be included in our official records. However, the consensus of this council is that established protocols should be maintained. We will continue our planned integration process, introducing human representatives to galactic society gradually while monitoring their development carefully. We have successfully integrated over 300 species using these methods. There is no reason to believe humans will require different treatment. Elder Thyman's skin faded to pale, translucent patterns that indicated resignation and profound sorrow. Then I pray to the ancient powers that I am wrong about these humans. Because if I am right, this decision will reshape the galaxy in ways none of us can predict or control. As the council session concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Thyman remained standing at the center of the amphitheater, staring at the last images of Earth rotating slowly in the holographic display. Somewhere on that distant blue world, 8 billion humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their future had just been decided by beings they had never met. But Thyman knew something the other delegates did not understand. The future of the galaxy had not been decided in this chamber today. It would be decided by how humans responded when they eventually learned the truth about the Galactic Council's plans for their species. And everything Thyman had observed about human nature told him that response would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. The ancient Valdari elder slowly made his way to the observation deck, where he could look out at the stars and wonder which of those distant suns would be the first to witness what happened when humanity decided their survival required them to become something more than the galaxy was prepared to accept. The awakening storm 3 years had passed since the Galactic Council's fateful decision, and Elder Thyman's warnings were beginning to manifest in ways that even he had not fully anticipated. The first signs appeared not on Earth, but in the deep space monitoring stations that tracked human transmissions and activities throughout their solar system. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, humanity's first interstellar vessel, as it emerged from its maiden voyage to Proxima Centauri. The ship represented the culmination of a secret project that had consumed vast resources and involved brilliant minds from every nation on Earth. What the Galactic Council did not know was that their careful monitoring had been detected by human intelligence agencies months earlier. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's chief xenobiologist and strategic analyst, approached the captain with a data pad containing information that would change everything. Sarah had spent her career studying the possibility of alien life, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of discovering that advanced civilizations had been watching Earth for decades while actively preventing human expansion into space. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled anger, "we've confirmed the existence of at least 12 different alien monitoring stations within our solar system. The energy signatures match technologies that are centuries beyond our current capabilities. They've been watching us this entire time." Elena Rodriguez was a veteran of the Global Space Coalition, chosen to command humanity's first interstellar mission because of her unique combination of military experience and diplomatic skills. She had been prepared to make first contact with alien civilizations as an equal partner in galactic society. Instead, she was discovering that humanity had been treated as subjects in a vast experiment. "How long?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer would be disturbing. "Based on the positioning and maintenance schedules we've detected, at least 50 years, Sarah replied. "They've been influencing our technological development, subtly guiding our research away from certain breakthrough discoveries while encouraging others. Captain, they've been controlling our evolution as a species." The implication struck Elena like a physical blow. Humanity's greatest achievements, their proudest moments of discovery and innovation, had been shaped by alien manipulation. The moon landing, the development of the internet, even recent breakthroughs in fusion power, all had been influenced by beings who saw humans as children requiring guidance rather than equals deserving respect. Meanwhile, on Nexus Station, Elder Thyman was receiving reports that confirmed his worst fears. Human space activity had increased dramatically over the past year, far exceeding all projections. More alarming, their technological advancement was accelerating beyond anything the Council's models had predicted. Admiral Marcus Chen, recently promoted to head Earth's newly formed Interstellar Defense Command, was reviewing intelligence gathered from humanity's expanding network of deep space sensors. Marcus had earned his reputation during Earth's resource wars, where he had demonstrated an unusual ability to turn defensive positions into launching points for devastating counterattacks. "Dr. Kim," Marcus said during a secure communication from Earth, "what's your assessment of their capabilities?" Sarah's image on the communication screen showed the same determination that had made her one of Earth's leading experts on xenobiology. "Admiral, they're not just advanced, They're sophisticated in ways we never imagined. They have technology that can manipulate matter at the quantum level, energy sources that dwarf our fusion reactors, and weapons that could sterilize planets from interstellar distances. But, Marcus asked, recognizing the tone in her voice that indicated additional information. But they're complacent, Sarah continued. They've been the dominant power in this region of space for so long that they've forgotten what it means to face a truly unpredictable opponent. Their technology is impressive, but their tactical thinking follows patterns that assume their enemies will behave rationally according to established galactic norms. This was the beginning of humanity's greatest advantage. The Galactic Council had spent millennia dealing with species that accepted established hierarchies, followed predictable development patterns, and operated according to logical strategic principles. Humans, as Elder Thyman had tried to warn, them did not follow such patterns. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, formerly a Galactic Council mining operation, something unprecedented was happening. The local population, a species called the Threnodi, had received secret transmissions from human rebels containing detailed instructions for overthrowing their council-appointed governors. Kethara, a Threnodi engineer who had spent her life maintaining council mining equipment, stood before a gathering of her people in an abandoned tunnel deep beneath the planet's surface. Her species were natural builders, with 6 limbs that could manipulate tools with incredible precision, but they had been relegated to manual labor under council rule for over 2 centuries. The humans have shown us something we had forgotten, Kethara said, her voice carrying through the tunnel's acoustic properties to reach hundreds of her people. Freedom is not something that is granted by those in power. It is something that is taken by those with the courage to demand it. The Threnodi uprising began with a single act of defiance that rippled across 12 star systems within a week. Using techniques learned from human resistance fighters, they turned their intimate knowledge of council infrastructure against their oppressors. Mining equipment became weapons, transportation tunnels became strategic choke points, and communication networks became coordination systems for a rebellion that the Council never saw coming. Back on Earth, humanity was transforming itself with a speed that terrified galactic observers. The discovery of alien surveillance had triggered what historians would later call the Great Acceleration. Every human government, corporation, and research institution suddenly understood that their species was in a race for survival against forces they barely comprehended. Dr. James Wright, director of the Global Technology Initiative, stood before a gathering of Earth's most brilliant scientists and engineers. The meeting was taking place in a facility that had been constructed in absolute secrecy, shielded from alien observation by technologies reverse-engineered from captured surveillance devices. "Ladies and gentlemen," James said, "we have 18 months, maybe 2 years before our activities trigger a direct response from the Galactic Council. In that time, we need to achieve technological parity with civilizations that have had centuries of head start. Impossible? Yes. Are we going to do it anyway? Absolutely." The room erupted in determined discussion as teams formed around breakthrough projects, quantum communication systems that would allow instant coordination across interstellar distances, fusion drives that could propel ships at significant fractions of light speed, weapons systems that turned human creativity and unpredictability into devastating tactical advantages. But the most important development was happening not in laboratories or military bases, but in the hearts and minds of ordinary humans who were learning that their species was not alone in the universe. The knowledge that advanced alien civilizations existed should have made humanity feel small and insignificant. Instead, it triggered the same response that had driven human achievement throughout history: the determination to prove that they belonged among the stars as equals, not subjects. Elder Thyman, monitoring these developments from his observatory on Nexus Station, felt a mixture of awe and terror as he watched humanity's transformation. His predictions were proving accurate, but even he had underestimated the speed and scope of human adaptation. "Elder," said his assistant, a young Valdari named Sinthar, "the Council is requesting your presence at an emergency session. Reports are coming in from 17 different sectors. Species that have been under Council authority for centuries are declaring independence. All of them claim to have received assistance from human agents. Thymon's skin patterns shifted through rapid color changes, indicating deep concern mixed with grim satisfaction. How many humans are we talking about, Synthar? That's the problem, Elder, we don't know. Our intelligence estimates suggest maybe a few hundred individuals, but they're achieving results that should require thousands of agents working over decades. They seem to understand exactly which pressure points to target in each society, how to inspire maximum resistance with minimal resources. This was the reality that the Galactic Council was struggling to comprehend. Humans didn't just adapt to new situations, they excelled in them. Every species they encountered, every society they studied, every government they analyzed became data that improved their effectiveness. They were learning to fight a galactic war by treating each engagement as an opportunity to understand their enemies better. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, human advisors were teaching the native Korath how to use their own food distribution networks as a weapon against Council occupation forces. The Korath had been feeding Council troops for over a century, never realizing that their control of the food supply gave them more power than any military force. Within the Silathi collective, Ambassador Nira was receiving reports that challenged everything she believed about diplomatic processes. Human negotiators were achieving in weeks what traditional galactic diplomacy required years to accomplish. They didn't follow established protocols or respect traditional hierarchies. Instead, they identified what each species truly wanted and found ways to make those desires compatible with human goals. They offered genuine partnership, Nira reported to the collective's governing council. Not the limited membership we provide, not the conditional acceptance that characterizes our relationships with newer species. They treat potential allies as equals from the first moment of contact. High Commander Zephyros was discovering that military superiority meant nothing when the enemy refused to fight according to established rules. Human tactics were unlike anything in galactic military history. They struck at targets that seemed strategically meaningless but created cascading effects throughout Council operations. They turned allies into enemies through propaganda that exposed uncomfortable truths about Council policies. Most frustrating of all, they seemed to be everywhere, at once, while remaining impossible to pin down for decisive battles. Admiral Chen, Commander Zephyros said during a rare direct communication between opposing forces, your people are fighting a war they cannot win. We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, resources from across the galaxy. What do you hope to accomplish? Marcus Chen's response would become legendary throughout human space. Commander, we're not fighting to win your war. We're fighting to make sure everyone understands there's an alternative to accepting defeat. This was the moment when the true scope of human strategy became clear. They weren't trying to defeat the Galactic Council through conventional military means. They were demonstrating to every oppressed species in the galaxy that resistance was possible, that freedom was achievable, and that the Council's power was not absolute. The rebellion that had begun with human defiance was becoming something much larger and more dangerous. Species that had never communicated with each other were coordinating attacks across multiple sectors. Worlds that had been stable Council territories for centuries were erupting in revolt. The established order that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was crumbling under the weight of an idea that humans had introduced to the galaxy, that all sentient beings deserved to determine their own destiny. Elder Thymon, watching from his observatory as the galaxy transformed around him, finally understood the true meaning of his ancient warnings. Humans were not just unstoppable as individuals or even as a species. They were unstoppable as carriers of an idea that resonated with every intelligent being who had ever dreamed of something better than the life they had been assigned. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one describing new rebellions, new alliances, and new challenges to Council authority, Thymon realized that the question was no longer whether humans could be stopped. The question was whether the galaxy that emerged from this transformation would be better or worse than the one that had existed before humanity reached for the stars. The answer to that question would depend on whether the courage and determination that made humans unstoppable would prove to be forces for creation or destruction. And as the first human starships began appearing in distant sectors, carrying with them the promise of freedom and the threat of revolution, Elder Thymon prepared himself to witness the birth of a new galactic age.